Hey guys, Daniel James here, and today what we're going to be doing is taking a look at Orchestral Tools' new string library, Con Sordino strings, or Berlin Con Sordino strings. This is their first library. Is it their first? I believe it's one of the first libraries in the industry that has Con Sordino strings actually recorded and not faked up after the fact. It's a library focused on Con Sordino. The way we're going to do this is in Avin a look. So what I've done is written a short track in the background, which we're going to listen to first. And then what I'm going to do is take a look at the string section by itself in the track and break down how I use the library in the piece, and then which articulations I jumped between and how difficult it was to use or how easy it was to use, things like that. But without further ado, before I go, let me mention we are doing this on live stream, so there is a chat room there. So if you see me responding or talking to anyone, it's the chat room. I'm not going insane. Without further ado, that was more ado, but without further ado, here is the short track called Consording with the Enemy. Consording, is that word? Consording. Here we go. So that was the short track I wrote. That was called Consording with the Enemy. There we go. I finally got there in the end. So what is in Con Sordino strings? Berlin Con Sordino. I should really say the full title. It's a Berlin edition. So if you use the Berlin strings, which is Orchestral Tools' flagship string library, this is recorded in the same stage, or on the same stage, the Teldec stage, I believe. And as I mentioned in the intro, this is one of the first libraries to have actually recorded Con Sordino as the point of the library. So all of the instruments and all of the articulations are Con Sordinoed, or consordined, I guess. I don't know how it goes. So each section, as you could see, is broken up into two different types. You have a regular version and then you have a specials. So just so that I'm not commenting or forgetting that on the way. So the specials and the regular, well, let me just pull it up here. So this is a regular one. You get your sustains with legato, sustains. You get a soft version, expressive, non-vibrato, soltato, collegno, porto, which are two versions of like kind of short, but they're like a long short. Staccato, spiccato, rips up, rips down. The basic types. And then you get a playable run, but we'll cover that in a minute. And then the specials come with these articulations. So you get like fast, it's more like the extended articulations, not the ones you're going to reach to the most. So it's things like harmonic tremolos, harmonics, some hotel mute. So that's a different type of mute that they're using there. That's got a different sound. It's a little bit more muted. but you have that option. Then you have some arpeggios, and then you have some repetitions. Those I didn't use as much. I just used more of the standard ones. But just so you know the difference, when we come to those, we can look at those. So let's quickly jump into the track. So as you could hear, there was all sorts going on there. I only used one other string in this entire thing. I did have Bohemian violin, but that was muted. The only other string I used was the Pacific cello freebie, but that's a free instrument, so you guys can go get that from Pacific Strings. It didn't factor big into the piece, so you can really consider all the strings in the piece you just heard as being from Con Sord. So quickly, let me just load up it all together, and let me just play you like a few sections of it just by itself, so without any of the extra stuff in the background. I haven't hit a key switch somewhere. There it is. So, the timpani. So the thing to know about Con Sordino is it's basically muted strings, right? So that's what makes it special, is they have a mute across the bridge. Well, is it across the bridge? But they have it on their strings, and it just mutes the sound. And most people will use consords for, just doing your typical kind of, like holding your high notes, you know? For which it is incredible at. And so one of the things that a lot of people don't understand when they first get into composition is that sometimes the technique or the type of sound you use is not more important, but it's just as important as the instrument you're choosing. So let's say you're doing a scene where, there's something happening, people are talking, and there's a bit of tension. If you just had like the bog standard sustain on all the time, and you're darting around in the background, because it's clean, because it's a strong sound, it will poke through and it'll take the attention away. So Con Sordino, like it's interesting, like it's even just now, it's softer. So with the consords, even when you're pushing hard, it never really gets abrasive, like how actual strings can get very loud and aggressive. So one of the best uses for Con Sordino is to go beneath your quiet scenes where you need music, but you need the music to be quiet. So a lot of people will just err towards general sustains, but if you have consords, it has a more delicate texture, and then you throw on top of that like something like a tremolo. It's like you're adding extra to the sound, extra noise, an extra layer of noise. Right, so things like that, absolutely incredible. But one of the things I wanted to show with this track is that Con Sordino, just even though it has the gentle texture, and most people will probably use a lot of new composers at least, will use consords like this, very pad-like, because it's amazing. It excels at that. Because there's something about the way consord adds that extra noise. It makes the air in the room a little bit more turbulent. So when you hear a consord, much in the same way as when you hear a tremolo, it adds a little bit more depth to the room, or the extra noise of the consort. It gives more of the 3D image to the room. If you just have a single sine wave and it bounces back, it's hard for you to get like a 3D image of the room because the bounces are too clean. When you have something like a tremolo and you put a consort on that, because the wave of air is so different and it has a bit extra noise because of that consort and it's not vibrating quite as freely, you sort of get a sense of the room more so. So it's good for that kind of thing, building space, building room as well. Anyway, so that's the tremolos. I forget what I was saying there. Oh yeah, so we have the section. So what I wanted to show with the track was that with consorts, you can play something which on big strings would sound big and impressive, but on consorts it makes it sound a bit more morose, a bit more kind of in the background, a bit more relaxed. So like here, you can see even. I mean, I'll show you the data again. You can see we're going particularly fast with the actual notes. We're not fast, but we're doing lots of different versatile things. But because it's all Con Sordino, it maintains an element of being soft and gentle. So if I was to go boom, dun, da, 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 ba, ba, on normal strings, just not having it muted would be a bit too aggressive to do a line like that. I think you understand the point I'm making. Sometimes if you are working on a track and it feels like your strings are a bit too much in your face, a bit too present, perhaps instead of making them quieter or bringing the velocity of everything down so that it's barely audible, maybe consider trying out a Con Sordino sound instead, because inherently they are more soft by design. So here you can hear I'm doing lots of different key switches. So we'll look at the cello. So as you can see down at the bottom here, well, actually down at the bottom and up at the top, so in the C6. So these ones here, the high ones are the cello ones. So you can see we start on the legato. We have an F. What's the F? So up here we have some sort of tremolo going on. Oh no, the porto. In fact, it would make more sense if I look at an individual one. So let's look at this. So you can see down at the bottom here, all the key switches. So one of the keys to making like a string line feel good, I think, and again, this is just my opinion, is to constantly lean into your key switches, right? They give you all of these all of these articulations, and I'm guilty of it myself, but most people tend to just whack it on sustain, and that's all they'll ever use, you know? I don't know why I hit all the extra notes. But like if you were doing a short note, you'd have the sustain, and then some people will just, because they're like, what does it matter? So as you can see here, like where I'm getting into my short bits here, I'm not even just going to the short. I'm making the different lengths of shorts so that we can have the different lines. So if you watch here, so we're just on the violin one here. So easy, just doing a bit of modulation, manipulation. Here we're coming into this and so the reason I think that sounded pretty real is what we're doing here is you see this line, the bum. So this is a porto. So portos sound like this. Right? So it's like a long short, but I'm doing the short, long, short. So porto short is It's sort of like a marcato, right? Someone could, I'm sure someone in the chat room will tell me the textbook definition, but I always hear it as sort of like a marcato, like just a single, like a single hit of the note, whereas a marcato's got more of an attack to it. Porto just feels more like a timed legato almost. Oh, sorry, a timed arco. And so these are good if anybody's ever used something like the waves in like a Spitfire product or something. These are great for that type of thing. So that's the long, short, long. No, that's the long, short, short. Yeah. So Porto long is a short that's long. Porto short is a short that's long but shorter than the long. And then staccato is a short, and then spiccato is the shortest short. Anyway, so what I did there is I played the Porto short, then we go to, was it the staccato I did? Yeah. So we go ba, da, da, ba, da, da, which is the line. The line isn't da, 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 because if I take away the Porto part, so let's just listen to that one more time. If I take away the Porto line for now and move these, so it's just staccato, listen to how different it sounds. And most people probably wouldn't even care about that difference. Right? But if I just take it back again and listen to it, it adds the intent of the next note to what I'm playing. So instead of it being but, it's ba da da ba da da, which holds the pulse, which is important to making a cohesive piece of music. Anyway, so then it goes from the Portos back to the sustains, and then we do sustains here again. Something to mention here is on Control 3, so in these string libraries, particularly on things like their sustains and legatos, they have actually different types of legato. There's vibrato, expressive, and subtle vibrato. So I always tend to have it on expressive. I always preferred the sound. But if we take that same line and then make it subtle vibrato, and then I'll have it go just up to it halfway through so you can hear the difference. How to describe it? It's sort of like it adds more room. So like I mentioned earlier about how a tremolo, because the waves of air are less uniform, they tend to fill up the room in which it's in. So you get a sense of the depth of the room when you have multiple microphones, because you can feel all that noise bouncing off the walls more so than a clean sound. So when you hear the clean sound, listen, it's almost smaller, almost more mono-ish. And then as the expressive one comes in at this point, it's almost like it just adds a bit more space, because the extra vibrato creates more chaos in the air turbulence around the string section, which fills the air around them with more turbulence, which inevitably gives you more sense of the room. Do you feel the difference in depth? So there it's actually gone off again. And again, I'll just put that back on. So what we could do here is we could have that expressive thing come in as these two do. And it makes it a bit more big set. It makes it sound a bit bigger. Like you could sort of think of it as a big, small. So this happens on the sustains and legato one. So it's just a simple option. You can apply it to any CC you want. It's set to CC3 by default, and you can just add that lane in Cubase. So CC3, and now I can just control that at will. So I have that going on in a few spots here and there. Very useful feature to have. So yeah, we did the portamento. Something like what I mentioned here is, so I wrote this line out, and one thing I want to impart to you, like as composers, is one way to think about this is like you write your line. Think about it as like coloring in, right? So I've got these two lines here, and at the minute they're just doing sustains, right? So that line we could add a bit of color to. And it's just as easy sometimes as clicking down in the zone and then scrolling through and being like, let's go with, you know what, let's make that a tremolo. Let's see if it sounds more interesting as a tremolo. And it does. It's just as easy as that. And it's like, you don't have to stick to sustains or like sometimes just try stuff, you know? So now we've made this bit all tremolo, which I actually prefer. So I'm going to keep. And then tremolos again. Right, and it's so subtle. But if this was sustains, right? Wait, what is it on? It's E1. If this was just a sustain, this would be the difference. Right, if I put it in context of the string section with it sustained, and then I'll make it tremolo. And the point I'm trying to make is when it's a tremolo, it adds a bit more texture, a bit more sort of airiness, a bit more sort of fantasy feeling to the whole thing, just by having the player, instead of bow, just tremolo, which sounds like instead of bow, tremolo. I'm making that a t-shirt, copyright. Instead of a bow, tremolo. So I'll play this section. So we're listening to this bit here, and I'm going to change it to tremolo the second time. We'll see if it makes a significant enough difference. Right, now same thing again, except now let's make that tremolos instead of sustain. To me, it's night and day. It makes it just a bit more purposeful. It's like with that AI art we were showing earlier. It's like, sure, you can make good-looking art just by hitting the chord, but if you're a bit more deliberate with it, if you're a bit more deliberate with where each note is going to go, you're going to make something a bit more compelling than just going with, you know, the standard articulations. My wife always tells me off because I make my music particularly complex. Like I have like maybe one too many lines going on for most people's taste. But I genuinely found with my ADHD, I enjoy busy pieces. So I guess just part of my sound is going to have these busy pieces. But let me, so what I want to show here is the tone of some of the instruments. So here we have the viola. So a good way to do this actually would probably be to like go from the bass up and we'll build on top of it. So the basses I just had most of the time, just sort of bumping along, doing a rhythm, because this piece sort of called for it. And the basses tend to, when they're consords, have like a different tone to them. Let me just make sure that this is, so let me just have a look. Like it's got the girth and stuff. It's just in this piece I didn't use it much, so I'm just quickly going to show you a few of the sounds of it. So it's got a beautiful sound. Just in general. The expressive ones are cool, by the way. Because they kind of come in with... They got a little bit too much of a noticeable attack, but the extra attack is good. I'm actually going to change hats. This one's cutting off the circulation to my brain. There we go. Look at that. Mid-show wardrobe change. We're going to the black hat because I want the Metal Gear. Jesus Christ. That other one's new, so it's like, well, it's not new, but I don't wear it much, so it's cutting into my head. Irrelevant for the stream, Dan. Anyway, so Sol Tasto. Again, very quiet ones. Col Legno. To the point where they're almost too quiet, yeah? But these are good for, again, like, if ever you're doing film score or game score, any type of score where the word underscore comes up, you should have a Con Sordino library. Because being able to do that, right? And you guys probably can't even hear it that well. You hear how quiet that is, how soft that is. Right? Having that in the background of a scene carries it so far. But again, it's not the instrument, it's the actual, it's what you play on it, right? It's what you play and how you play it that matters. It's not just the instrument. So when you first get into composition, a lot of people just think all I need is the string sustains and the string shorts and I'm good. That's what I used to think. It's that blissful ignorance when you first start. But having Con Sordino, having it muted and then having someone play Col Legno, and, or Sol Tasto, or, even Flautando. Flautando isn't in this one, but if you have them playing those techniques, that will put across what you're wanting to say as a composer, right? Because if you're wanting to say, like underscore is difficult because you're not saying a lot usually. You're usually just sort of carrying the scene. And when you do that, it's more about, it's not what you're saying in that moment, it's how you're saying it, right? You're sort of whispering to the audience, everything is still safe, not much is going on, just focus on the scene. We'll bring in a bass, there's a little bit of tension, but it's not that great yet. You know what I mean? Like that's sort of how you roll with an underscore. You're sort of whispering to the person. You're not kind of going, everything is okay, people. Nothing to see here. They're just talking on screen. Like that's what happens if you use the wrong articulation and you become too overt. Your underscore is being too present. It's trying to tell you what's happening, whereas you're supposed to feel what's happening. And that's where technique comes in. And that's why having such a broad range of techniques available on the key switch like here, that's why that's important. And that's why I keep trying to show it to you. Anyway, so with the basses we've just got in the piece, we've mostly just got them going. And then the cello. So you guys know I love cello. Like cello is by far my favorite instrument to compose for. Mostly because I think it's the closest to my own voice. Like if you listen to the register that my voice is in, it kind of goes deep, but like a cello, like it doesn't go into the bass range. And it kind of can go high like a cello, but it can't go into the violin range that easily, So for me, it sort of resonates where my inner voice resonates. So I tend to write melody for it a lot more. Sorry, I got a bit of a cough today. I'll just put it with these. So again, we do the line here. Again, doing the porto and staccatos here. So we could probably do the same with this one. With this line here, we could probably make that a tremolo as well, being as though we did it with all the other instruments. Man, I haven't streamed in so long. My throat is just like, what are we doing? Right, so here on this one, so that actually played a porto short, which we don't want it to do. I'm on the wrong one. We want it to go to tremolo. So it's going to go ba-da-da-da. Now you see that doesn't work, but maybe if we bring it in here, that's another thing. Is some of the instruments have different, like they have different sort of modulation tolerances, I guess. So like for that to work, I'd have to come down like that, which is a very unnatural way to do it. So that I didn't like. So that I would abandon, right? So what I'm actually using there is the Porto short. Right? And this second one, we could make a Porto long, for example. Wait, what did I play there? Oh no, so that was a sustain. So we could make these like long Portos rather. That didn't work at all, did it? Oh, it's because I picked the wrong one. And that works because it's just a long note. So there are times in your piece, again, like I'm trying to with this library, the way it's set up makes it very easy for you to get the right articulations and blend them into a line that makes sense. So I'm trying to stew upon you the reason that's important. So because we have these two lines here, yes, we could absolutely just have them again do the sustain, which would be fine and it would work great. Which is fine. But we also have these shorts, these Portos. So we have the option of, instead of making it da 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 da, we can have it go da 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 da. So it's more of an accent. It's more about choosing, being very deliberate about the way that you're phrasing certain libraries. Because going bum 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 is better than ah 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 ah. Right? There's one that services that line better. That, like, you can't la 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 doesn't work as good as dun 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 dun. There's certain ways of articulating a line that will be better for the line to say what you want it to say, right? Because if you did Beethoven's Fifth as a la rather than a da, it would be a worse song. If it was la 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 la. La 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 la. You know, it would be a different song than dun 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 dun. So that's a very extreme example. When you're working between the different articulations in Con Sordino strings, it's not as pronounced, but it does matter just as much. So it's worth checking, is this line going to be better as a sustain or a Porto? So that worked, but it was a bit loud. So if we bring that down, sometimes the shorts are on, like this I've never, like, it's always been difficult and I don't know what the answer is. But when you have shorts and longs on the same patch with a key switch, with the longs being controlled by modulation and the shorts being controlled by velocity, sometimes it's difficult when you're writing a line to balance them, particularly if you're going legato into shorts like I am here. Because you're not sure whether you should be balancing the modulation. So that's still too loud. Maybe if it was like that. So for some reason, I can't get this line to be quieter. Do I have to go even lower? You see what I mean? Like, there's certain times when you just can't get it to fit. So I have to listen to this. Let me see if it works better in the track. Because it now goes, instead of it going da 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 da, it now goes da 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 dun dun. I actually way prefer that. Because it makes that timpani hit feel important. Let me just double check that one more time. Did you guys feel the difference on that? Right, I'm just resetting the thing. So again, I'm just going to do a with and without. I know for some of you this is tedious, but it's important to show the difference and the reason it's important. So if I, again, just make this line a sustain, listen to this note and how weak the timpani feels when it's just a regular sustain. Right? No real accent to it. But if we make it a porto short, now listen how more intentional it sounds. And so it just adds, it's closer to what I'm trying to say. Like, that's the thing with music. You're always trying to make a point. You're always trying to say something with music. The music is trying to present you with an image. And so doing things like this is just trying to find, like, whenever you do something, does it bring me closer or further away from what I'm trying to achieve? And just changing that one note to a porto instead of leaving it as a sustain, it was fine as a sustain. You guys wouldn't have noticed the difference. I would never have noticed the difference. But because I tried it with the porto and I can now hear it with it, and I see that it's actually accenting the timpani, not only has it made my piece better because it's accented the timpani, it's now made my mind realize, oh, if we use porto short over the timpanis, it adds an accent to the timpani, therefore making it sound more important and more deliberate, which if I was still composing this piece would be something that I would now go and just double check that I could do elsewhere, right? So here's another cool thing. So they added these different forms of sustain, right? So the regular one is the legato. Which has got a great sound, actually. And also, I'm just going to mention, having an actually recorded Con Sordino cello legato is so useful. Like I mentioned, I've been helping out on some TV stuff, like won't go into what, but like stuff like Con Sordino cellos are invaluable, because when someone's talking but you need to present a theme, for example, it's subtle enough that you can just subtle enough that it can just stand in the background, but it's got enough flexibility and tone to carry a melody. Hold that note a bit. I know it goes down, but copyright says that I must go up. And it doesn't go particularly fast, but they do have down here at the bottom the playable runs legato. So this is an interesting one, because it's I'm just going to put it over here. It's how would you describe it? It's not fully perfect, but let's just do like a run. Let's do a run up the minor pentatonic or something. Let's just see what it sounds like. Da, da, and then back down like so. And then that again, but going back up. Da, 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 da. Close enough. So what it does is it's basically like so that you can do runs. Oh, wait, what have I done? What I've done. Sounds, oh, no, that's not what we want to do. Where did I put it? There it is. Move you out of the way. Right. So I'm just going to speed this up by double. Now double that. Right, so you see that goes past the threshold. But this was fine. So it's sort of like I often use these kinds of things when I'm doing like this kind of line, you know, like like, you know, these kinds of things, where it's like a cascading downwards line, like so. Oh, what have I done now? Did I get rid of the thing? What did I do? I went way too high for a cello. Right, so I'd play a line like that. Right, and then we pull that, stretch that out, and then... I'm not sure why that went to there. Like this line didn't articulate. So maybe it has to be within range. But then they also have an option. So this is the version with legato. There is a version without legato. So just playable runs here. So that sounds like this. And if you had that in the background, I'm sure that would work, you know, like behind everything. But with the legato, I think that sounds great. I'll just show you what it's like on the violin. We could probably have them play it together, but we'll just mute this one for now. Right, and then if I put the strings at the top on playable runs. Oh, don't mute it. Oh, and that's controller 3, but we will have it expressive. Let's bring that mod wheel up. Right. Why is that so quiet? What have I done wrong here? What did I do? Goes a little weird at the end there. So as you can hear, like it actually works really well for doing these kinds of lines. Interestingly, they didn't go that well together. That one stopped doing legatos. I'm not sure why that's happening. That's interesting. Wonder why that happened. Maybe if I take control 3 down. I somehow managed to balk it there. But anyway. Oh, that was how. So when I pushed enter, like here's something to be like enter in Cubase is stop go. So this is something for orchestral tools. Never do this. Never make enter control anything on your UI. Because what I'm doing there is I'm reloading and unreloading the legato transition. Are you guys seeing that? Watch the bottom right of the UI. So I push enter, which is play, and you see how I've unwittingly there turned off the legato. Never, ever make your UI take over the control of the keyboard. Like, never do that. Never do that. Ever. Because, like, the worst is when you get, like, a plugin that takes over your space bar, which is stop go for most DAWs, and you push space and then it like turns on and off some effect on the UI. We need to get better at that because some do it great, some don't do it at all. By the way, worth mentioning at this point, this is the updated sign player. And so like one of the reasons I haven't done many sign player libraries is I've been struggling, like the engine I've been struggling with. Mostly when, if you load an instrument like the old version, with the older version of it, whenever I would load an instrument in, I would have to wait until it was loaded to play anything else. Because if I played anything else, it would lock up the system completely until the sign player had finished loading. Then it would spit out every bit of audio that I'd played up until that point in like a bizarre cacophony of just spats of audio. I'm not sure why that happened. The latest update has completely got rid of all that. It's also made background loading seem a lot quicker. But anyway, so let me just listen to that one more time. Right, so now this is the legato with it actually on and me not breaking anything. I wonder how much faster we can make that. We'll just keep shortening it until it breaks. That for me was good. What do you guys think? Do you think that works at that speed? What would be good is if we had accents. Like if they allowed me to accent this like that, that would be even better. And the reason that would be way better is because then it wouldn't just be da 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 da, it'd be ba 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 instead of la 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 la. So I'm sort of implying the accent right now. I'm implying it with oh yeah, I can't I'm not on a grid. I'm an idiot. Yeah, so you're sort of implying the accent with the rhythm. That sounded fine. Right, how much faster can we go? I'd say that's the limit. Like that, I'd say was the upper limit. Yeah. Yeah, it rings over the top. That's what happens when you've got loads of them playing really quick. You could EQ that out, and I'd say in a mix, you wouldn't even hear it. But yeah, so as you can hear, the playable runs are actually viable, like incredibly viable. It's just I didn't use them much in here. I could have used it like in this bit, but it felt like it was a bit too... Again, it's the sustain was saying more what I wanted to say, so I could have made it here. I think that works better as a sustain because it's la da 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 da. You hear the ringing too? Is it still ringing? Is it still ringing for you? I did turn that all the way up to 100. One thing, by the way, that I do want to, I want to give them some shit about, guys, is that for some reason I always struggle. Like first off, please, if we could make it so that any changes I make down here, we have an option for a global filter, like. You know, so if there's like a button here that just says global, so that here, if I want to set up a niente, I don't have to set it up for the soft and the sustains and the expressive. Right, so for those who don't know what niente is, when you have a legato, if I just turn these off, right, so with the mod wheel at the top, very loud. With the mod wheel all the way at the bottom, you would expect nothing, right? But without niente, you get this. You just get the softest layer. Now, that makes sense if you're just writing, because that's sort of like when a player stops playing a note, they just stop playing a note. But when you're working with samples, you usually want to be able to sort of fade it out. So what you do is you come over here to the dynamic button and you click niente, and then soft low layer I like to do as well. And then I bring the filter range up to like, you know, just a quarter of the way. And then what that does is it sort of filters out the low. As you get lower on the mod wheel, it starts applying a filter to the high end, sort of like what would happen if you were to play softer. And it also turns the volume down so that you can go to niente, to nothing. Which means you can fade the line out. Although I did notice, can you guys hear that? There's a little pop as it comes back on. So there's like every now and again, I get like a little like trigger thing where the volume will come in loud as if like the niente switches off for a second, as if like when I go to niente, it turns off the sample. And then when I come back on, it brings it back in, but it hasn't caught up with the niente. But yeah, so like I need that niente to be able to apply, because let's say, for example, I'm playing down here and then I change over to my soft. My soft won't go to niente. So here's actually a good point. So as we were talking about the soft, so one of the cool things they did is, so you get the sustain, which I'm using for a lot of the things. You also have sustains, which is just if you wanted to do some chords, but with the same tone. But then you also have the soft one. These are great for just if you're background chording. Right, so nice and soft. But they, like, I love these ones, the expressive ones. Because it almost adds like a marcato attack to it. And I actually used that on the cello somewhere around here, and I think it sounded way better. So let me just show you that as an example. So the cello, at some point, we were... So here, where we're playing around bar 17. So this bit here, these notes here are playing the what are they actually called? So we watch the cello. This one. So you hear when it changes over, and we move over to the sustain expressive, which is this one, this key switch. What that sustain expressive does is, because it's adding that initial attack, it makes it more dramatic. I'll do the same thing again where I go between with it on and with it off. So this is the sustain part leading up to it. This is sustain legato. Now. And now if I just kept that as sustain, and in the context of the piece, so you see it kind of goes, instead of it going da 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 da, it goes dun dun dun, right? So again, one more time in the mix, just listen for when this key switch comes in. Listen to how the cello, which is in your right speaker, all of a sudden gets more dramatic, even though we're not doing anything dramatic in the modulation. And one more time with it as sustain in the mix. So as you can hear, just again, having the same thing that you need to do, just presented in a different way, gives you more options to say the actual thing that you want to say. And of course, we have like, you know, soltastos. Beautiful tone, beautiful sound. The collegno track. I can never pronounce the fuck it. Just make up some English words for it. I don't need to be calling anything collegno tratto, right? I understand Italian is a thing, but it's time to move on. So this is kind of like a scratchy. Which is nice and cool. I'll just show you some of these extended ones. So we got like some rips up, these kinds of things, and then rips down. And I think I did use some of those in, here, I think, in the second violins. So let's just jump over to them. So the second violins were doing a lot of background stuff. Where did I place them? So here we have the violins too. Currently doing some tremolos. It's kind of filling out the harmony there. So legato. And then these are just sort of doing that in the background. So there I'm actually using the rips down. But as you can hear, I'm sort of doing them on like an offbeat. How can we unsolo? So let's just solo these bits. So let's listen. We're listening out for the. You won't be able to hear it because it's in the mix, but. So if I get rid of the cello, the violin, and viola, you should be able to hear it a bit better. It's not very good. Harmony. This whole time I had them actually in the wrong spot. You couldn't hear it. It didn't matter. You hear it's a boom, ding. And I could, of course, make that rips up if I wanted to. It would sound a bit different, but... which I actually like as well. And then the same thing, but with the fifths. So these should be. I feel like they should be on the eighth though. Dum da, like so. Boom, boom. That one works. Does it work better with the rips up? No, that was right. So you can hear like the purpose of these kinds of things. A lot of people are often like, why would you add that in? It's so that when you're doing a line like that, you can add in these parts that add a little bit more interest rather than, again, just doing staccato. I wonder what would happen if you spread them out like that. Yeah, it doesn't really work like that. Again, I could make these staccato perhaps. But that doesn't really work because they're supposed to be offbeat. So that would be doom. Nah, I prefer it as, you know, I can't decide between the rips up and the rips down now. I actually prefer the rips up. So next up we have down here, what was this one at the bottom? This was... So this is actually violins too. So technically these two are the same thing. Oh, no, this one and this one. But what I'm playing here is the tremolo shorts. So the reason I'm doing this is I have this choral part down here. Obviously, the choir isn't part of the library. And for those interested, this part of the choir that's staccatoing, doing the shorts, that is women's choir from Metropolis Arc 2. All of the choir is coming from Metropolis Arc 2. So anyway, so they're doing like this little short thing. Doesn't sound great in isolation, but... Right, so I had that line and I wanted to double it. And at first I had it on staccatos, which sounds like this. Which absolutely works, right? Absolutely works. But it didn't feel special. It just felt like I was... So I was like, okay, what other options do I have? And I was like, oh, I've got these tremolo shorts, which is sort of like a measured tremolo. So they just kind of go, brr, brr, right? So that's the difference between... Like, that's the difference between... so that was with the trems. This is just staccato. That's tremolo. Right, so I think... So again, that's staccato. This is tremolo. Staccato. Right, and it feels fine. So you see, same thing. I'm playing the same thing again, doubling, but again, we have all of these extra options. And when you have something with a bit more texture, a bit more character, it tends to make the line a bit more sort of special. It makes it feel a bit different than, you know, the kind of bog standard bread and butter that everybody else can do. Because not everybody else pays that much attention to detail, but it does matter. And it doesn't matter so much, you know, because it shows how good you are. It matters in the same way that being careful about the way you say something matters. Like if someone you can tell is particularly fragile right now, you don't hit them with blunt honesty. You know, you are careful about the words you choose and the manner in which you deliver them. Music is the same. It's, you know, like we receive music through the same centers of our brain that we receive language. You know, we have an understanding of it. And so these nuances, while they seem superficial on the surface, it's like a little muscle twitch that gives away when someone's angry. You know, like they could be perfectly fine. It's just that the nuance that humans can pick up on when it comes to sound is actually quite big. We have to be able to tell, as a survival mechanism, we have to be able to tell the nuance in people's voices, the nuance, like we need to be able to factor in if they're a threat or if there's something wrong. So when you think about music, remember, just choosing the difference between this being da-da-da or being this, if it'll let me, is such a subtle nuance. But it is closer to what I'm trying to say with the music. Therefore, it is the option I will go with. And that's something worth mentioning as well, is that like composition back in the day was more of like an art in the way painting is. Like you would have the idea and you'd sort of work towards the final concept. I feel like to a degree, particularly with DAWs and stuff, music composition is now more like sculpting than painting, because we have the option to throw all of the ideas sort of in there and then try them out in different ways. You know, we can strip bits of clay away, put bits of clay back in. Whereas with a painting, it's difficult to strip away something without having to paint over it. You'd have to sort of be you're sort of tied into the image you have. Whereas with music, you can sort of sculpt a bit more. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because these articulations are all the ones that you would want, and they're quite deep, and it's consistent across all the sections. It makes it very easy for you to try different ideas, try out the different approaches to scoring with it, Okay, so then we had, let me just play the viola with like the backing bits, because we haven't checked out much of the viola tone. So violas have an interesting tone that people either love or hate, and it really depends on right. So that's sort of the tone. Viola players always get bizarrely weird lines when I play. So like the three together, just to show like the consistency between the legatos. So this is a section with just the legatos playing together. Well, that was messy as fuck. Right, let's So here's a cool part. So this part at the end here, what I'm doing is I'm just using that porto again. So that is literally just using the porto shorts again. So these are some of my favorites. Like they're just like the little swells, just enough of a swell that you can. Right, so it's got that easy to do sort of waltz vibe, and so obviously I had to change the legato here. So and again, I'm not doing these on different tracks. Like that's why I never have a set template, like with thousands and thousands of tracks. I like to load things as I go, and I actually prefer now, if I have a library that has all the articulations on, I prefer to just do key switches, because I've realized that particularly projects where I'm working with live orchestras, when I have it all spread out all over the place, it can be a little tricky. It can be a little tricky to figure out, oh, actually, that short note over there on track 17 is supposed to be in the same like sheet as the track 2 cello legato that I loaded, And like some people have every articulation on its own channel. That's great for writing, but it's not so good after the fact. And I actually prefer keeping it sort of tidy, because when you have the melodies and stuff together, it works a bit better. Let me just put these legatos together one more time so you can hear them. So as you can see, like just jumping between the legato and the different articulations on the fly has more of a natural feel, I tend to find. More so because you don't end up doubling up on instruments, which usually is what sets your ear off as like, huh, there's like 900 cellos in this piece, you know, or something along those lines. So let's quickly jump over to the specials. So as you can see down here, I actually have, did I only load one of the specials? I feel like I loaded more. Violins 1 is on channel 6, although it doesn't look like I've used it. Oh, I did. So violin 1 is on the specials, but I think that's the only one I loaded. But I'll show you the specials of the other one. So the specials, again, are just these kinds of like extended articulations. So for this, I've got the arpeggio open. And basically all that's doing is it's just, well, I mean, I'll show you. It's easier than trying to explain it. It's very quiet. So it's just playing chords, right? Just sort of hovering around the chord, just shimmering around the chord. And as you can see, like I'm key switching. So yeah, if you watch it, I'm key switching to keep it diatonic, keep it in the key. So now we have a minor one. Open. Back to minor. So these things are mostly just... Oh, wait, wrong one. They're so quiet. So these, yeah, like this is going to be so loud from now on, but yeah. So basically it's just doing this like type of noise. Which are always great, you know. And if we make it like minor. Yeah. So that, you know, we'll do the... Right? Like you could sort of, like, it's way too loud right now. Like that's louder than you would ever have it. But as you can hear, it just adds that kind of thing. And of course they have major versions. Right? I'll just go through the list of these. So the harmonic fast tremolos are these. These are ultimate, just, you know, get in the background type stuff, you know. Or the Viola would sound. If we were to like put the violas on soft. So as you can hear, it's got a very special sort of tone, those fast harmonics. Really do like that sound. What else do we have? So slow irregular ones are the same kind of thing, just as the name implies. Just listen to how much air there is. And again, think underscore for a video game. Sometimes you just need a high string to be floating in the background. And if all you have is a sustain, it's not going to feel the same as if you have something like this. I mean, just as an example, let's try Violins 2 doing, where are they? Violins 2 on sustains, right? So just imagine the scene, like, and all you had was sustains, right? Right, so we put that there, and then, you know, if we were playing over it. Sounds great. Right? But if we went instead for something like same lines, the same notes I played. And so you can see, like, it just adds, like the chat room, like Clay says, it just adds a bit more tension. But tension isn't even the word. It adds more air, adds more space. It gives you what you want from a high sustain string. It gives you the sustain of the harmonic, you know, like that note is still drifting there, but it's not a solid note anymore. It's sort of like the note is there, but it's a cloud of that note, almost granular in a way. But because it's a cloud of that note, think of it like Photoshop. Instead of it being a big blob of color, it's just like a transparent cloud of color over the top. So it's not getting in the way. You can see through it and you can hear the music, but it's giving you what you want without standing in the way. But it also adds a little bit of character, a little bit of texture. Harmonic sustains are just that, harmonics. Something I will mention here, though, by the way, is you do have an envelope, which, you know, some other like custom players still don't have. So you can adjust. Make it even longer. And the most important part is the attack. And the reason that's important, because if you're doing... Right, this one's actually works fine already. Like, there's only some libraries that struggle with the sucking effect, which is where they have a release tail that cuts off before the next note can play. So there's like these dropouts almost of the sound in the background. But let's say we pull the attack of this, we can make it even more of a pad. So if you don't want to play it like strings, if you literally want to utilize it like you would a synth pad, so this is good like when you're doing a scene. Like a scene where you're really, really underscore, but you need to change to like a new note or a new chord. Just having it slowly fade across. Or like introduce like a high note. Like if you add a high note in when it's just comes in too strong for me. Lovely. Right. So then we have hotel mutes, which is it's the same thing. It's just a different mute. Just compare the two. Well, mind you, this is doing harmonics. So this is the same as the regular mute, but with a different mute on. Although this is different because it has the slow one, which I actually like. My volume went down on my voice or on the thing, Clay? It still looks okay this end, but maybe something just randomly turned down. For what? Everything turned down. Did yours turn down? Is everybody struggling? If my audio has gone quiet, I apologize that you have to turn it up. I actually prefer the slower regular tremolos. There's something about it. They got a bit more humanity to them. And then the same again, muted sustain. Again, these are good ones if you want a stable thing. Like that. You know, a nice, interesting chord. And then... Although after a while, it does start to sound very zzz, I've noticed. Let's turn that back off. And then we have the arpeggios, which we looked at. And then we have these Lure repetitions. So this is just... And they're not tempo sync, so it's when you play it. It's better to just play all the notes together. So the thing, like with these, like those I would probably program myself. I appreciate, like with action strings, I appreciate having these things recorded though, because if I'm going to do that anyway, it's usually better to just use the recorded version. Oh, what is that? Oh yeah. Oh, I just died in... It's that one. It's I Died in Your Arms Tonight, right? Cutting Crew. Oh, it's only me that's... Is it... Am I... I'm going crazy. There she sits by the bedside table. And then we have repetitions mixed. Oh, which is fine, but it's because it's a set rhythm. Like, I probably wouldn't use it as much. I'll just pull up as an example. I just wanted to quickly take another look at the cello specials because I didn't get much of a chance to look at those. I'm just going to make it channel 7 for now. Cello special, right. So the cellos with their fast tremolos. All right, so we need to make, for now, we'll just make this one number 8. That is playing, right? It's just very quiet. So this is on the cellos. Again, if you just need the sound of humans, because that's not really a note in that one. All right, Harmonic Sustains. By the way, as a pro tip, if you're going to use harmonics, just use samples. Don't record harmonics live. Because getting harmonics to be the correct pitch in a live environment takes time. So these are the hotel mutes. That I probably wouldn't use. It's too messy. But I might use them. Like you could get away with using the cello ones. They sound very grand. But if you go out of time, done. But yeah. So other than that, there's not much else that's different from the usual Orchestral Tools release. So worth mentioning here is the Con Sords are all recorded with Con Sordino. Like, again, that's something worth mentioning because usually it's just faked with like how they mix it. They mix it to sound muted. But these are recorded in the room, which is different in the same way that recording, like if you record if you had 6 French horns and you recorded them all individually in the same room, recording their parts, and then you comped it together, it would sound different than if they were all playing together in the same room at the same time. It's because music isn't a thing that you do. It's the way you manipulate air. And more people isn't just more people doing the thing. More people is more air being pushed. That's what it is. So it's not about how many instruments you have. It's about how many instruments you have in the room at the same time. Like, that's the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter if you have 1,000 players, if they're all recording themselves on their iPhones, because it's all going to sound like individual recordings, right? So when you have Con Sordinos recorded in the room, it is different because the way that the air is being manipulated is different. So if you were to just mix it, you're mixing the reverb of the actual room, which doesn't happen. It's like if you EQ, let's say you have a sound design and you put a reverb and then you EQ after the reverb, you're cutting into the reverb, right? You're cutting out stuff that reverb's doing. So you're actually shaping the reverb away from what it was naturally. And the point of a lot of sample libraries is they're recorded in rooms which are designed for these types of instruments. So you don't really want to cut away the room that much. You want the echo to be fine. You just want to change the tone of the actual source audio, which in this case is strings. So you mute the strings, which changes the way that the actual sound, the actual way the air moves around the room, and therefore it sounds different in the actual recording. Like something a lot of people actually miss. So anyway, that's going to be my Avin a look at Berlin Con Sordino by Orchestral Tools. In conclusion, my final thoughts. So firstly, having this sound available at all, a Con Sordino recorded in a great room, is a great thing to have. I've already used it. There's something to be said about muted strings and how well they can cover underscore territory. Even when the cue calls for like standard sort of writing. That's why I wrote our demonstration piece in the way that I did, so that I could show it in a more musical way. Because I tend to find when I used to use Con Sordinos, I would just use them as pad type things, because they were designed to be soft. I was literally just using them as such. But because now I have Con Sordinos and the ability, with great legatos and great options of articulations to change between, that I was utilizing it like a normal string library. And then I realized when I was working on my actual work projects, if I just swap out the Con Sordino for the actual string part I've put here, I'm getting the same piece of music I wrote, but it's selling the scene better because my music isn't getting in the way, because the instruments are playing textures and timbres that are more appropriate for what we're actually doing here. And it's something up until now you would have to mix to fix, which is a cool little phrase. You would have to mix to fix. But now, because you have the option of using the Con Sordino, it's not something you need to fake after the fact. You can just make the music softer. And that's what I tried to do there. Even though the piece goes big and loud, it never really gets in the way. And that, I think, is important for a Con Sordino library. The articulations are fantastic. There's a good variety of them. It's got all of the bread and butter ones that you would need. No flautando, but I don't know how flute-like one can play with a mute on. So I wasn't that bothered about that. I do like the portamento. It's not portamento, the porto. Is porto just porto? I've never known that. I always want to say portamento. But the porto, which are like the soft marcatos. Again, we need some English words, people. It's 2022. I know the Italians love that old musical language, but we need some better English words. Scratchy. Anyway, it's got all of these great textural ones. Downsides. So the sign player has that thing where it catches your enter key every now and again. Like it'll take over your keyboard control and I'll accidentally turn something. Or if I use my scroll wheel when scrolling through the list of instruments, I'll accidentally change the MIDI assign number. Things like that. The sign player has been updated, and I was fully prepared to come into this video with my biggest sign player gripe, but it's actually been fixed in the update. My gripe was, and if any of you guys are struggling with this, the update fixed it for me. It's when you load an instrument into sign player, if it hasn't fully loaded, it can sometimes take over the full audio card until it's finished loading, and then all of a sudden, all of the sounds that you tried to play hit you all at once, and it sort of glitches out until it's loaded. I also had some projects that were hanging on loading for that reason, because it sort of needs to load everything in before it would, let you get to the thing, which felt like a bug. And in the latest sign player update, it has been fixed, so I'm not having any troubles at all. Another thing definitely worth mentioning. So even though I struggled with sign player, niente, that was what I wanted to mention. OT, please put niente. Please put niente. In fact, before I go, there is something else I want to show as well. So I appreciate this mix window, but I think this needs a redesign, guys. I think, I love what you're doing, but you need either you need to differentiate more the main one from, the main mixer from the mic mixer. Just give it a different look. Give it a different look or a different color. Make the actual instruments blue or red or even this orange color. Just make it so that on observation, it's easy for me to see where so right now I can see where violin 2 microphone is, right? But if I extend all of these like they are by default, right? If I extend them all like they are, now if I just do this, right, back and forward, like this, right? Now tell me where violins 2 is. Right? It's here. But the thing is it takes you longer than it should to acknowledge and see it. Mic merging also still a thing. For those of you who don't know what mic merging is, that's where you set up a mic position or a mic balance that you like, and then you click merge, and it will literally create a new fader, which is a combination of those mic positions bounced down to new samples. That's an incredible feature. But the biggest feature worth mentioning about Sign, finally, is that do remember that with Sign Player, you can purchase parts a la carte, which means if you really liked the string legato, for example, if you only like the sound of violin one, or you just want some of those, you want the violin one special so you can get that harmonic gliss over the top, you can buy each instrument individually. You don't need to buy the whole package, because I did see in the chat room a lot of people talking about the price. So I believe this one is it $500 as retail price? I think it's $500 retail price. I know it was around in the 300s, right, when it was on sale. Worth mentioning, obviously, they did send me the review copy to do the review, which is what we did. So that's why I sometimes don't realize what the price is. Let me just, I won't be able to check either because I own it. So like it won't show it to me on the store. But if you're worried about the price of this, again, with Orchestral Tools, they tend to lean heavier into working composers. Like when their prices are high, I tend to think that's for two reasons. Firstly, it's sort of like, I'm not saying this is why they do it, but one of the reasons it's cool as a professional is if not everybody is using a library because, like, if the hobbyists aren't buying it because it's too expensive, it means that sound, that specific sound, is going to sound more unique to more people. It's going to have longer legs for the professionals, which means that it's not a sound that's going to outdate itself very quickly. In fact, that's the main reason. I forget what the other reason was. But yeah, so you can buy them a la carte. I forgot totally where I was going with that. It's been so long since I've done a video. My brain just stopped working on how to put information together. Anyway, so yeah, so the negatives were not many. It was literally just I need Niente. I need to be able to take all of the patches. Like global controls would be good for the sign player, I think, in general. Like if I'm changing something, just apply it to all of the articulations. Also, a better way of balancing the spiccatos and the staccatos. So whether that be tying, I hate doing this, but it's like if you're in multi-mode, so if you're using a patch and key switching between, maybe make the mod wheel also control the maximum velocity that a staccato can go to. So if I'm doing a legato line, I don't have to do a sudden cut down around the staccatos, or something. Because the biggest problem you have is when you have a legato line and then you go into staccatos, which are controlled by velocity. If you're really quiet, it's very difficult to balance the velocity with the modulation level because they're not the same number. So you have to just sort of do it by ear, and you spend a lot of time just tweaking that. If there was a way to make that more consistent, that would be greatly appreciated. But I would also have Niente on by default. Like having notes that go to silence, I think is important, particularly when you're composing. But other than that, the fact you could buy this a la carte means that if it's too expensive for you, you can just buy the bits you want. But like I mentioned, as a professional, it's good that not everybody has the sound. And I think also that like Orchestral Tools tends to focus on the needs of composers, like professional composers. They tend to be more pro-focused in their design, and they tend to listen to the input from external people. Like whenever, like in my conversations with Orchestral Tools, when I talk to them about sound, they seem very receptive about the thing. So if you have ideas about the engine, do let them know, but be respectful. Be respectful. Let them know what needs to happen, in your opinion, and why. And I think they would probably change it because they've been good so far. But other than that, I think it's a great library, definitely worth having for professionals. If you're a hobbyist, might be a bit rich for your blood and a bit specialist and niche for what your purposes are. But if you write music for anything that has underscore, absolutely worth a purchase, absolutely worth a look in, because just having that softer option will cover so many of your eventualities when working. But anyway, guys, that is going to be my having a look at Berlin Con Sordino. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you're watching this on YouTube, this is where the video is going to end. If you're watching this on Twitch, don't worry, we're going to carry on for a bit longer, so stick around. But if you are watching this on YouTube, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.